Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larby.
Cam McCarroll, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks very much, Sarah. Great to be here. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm happy to have you here. I mean, you've got lots of different, knowledge in different asset classes. And I think we're going to talk about that today, along with some really cool investments outside of the country. So before we get into all that good stuff, though, maybe give my listeners and viewers a little bit of information on your background and how you got started.
Yeah, sure. I mean, as far as real estate goes, I've been a real estate investor since about 2009 in Hamilton. I've been running a real estate team in the Hamilton area since, probably since 2015, I guess I started the real estate team thing. And so we've got a team of 6-7 people now, but been investing in Hamilton since 2009.
Very cool. So Hamilton, and I think recently you started looking outside of the country. So can I ask why? What are some of the benefits of looking outside of Hamilton?
Well, I think, outside of the country investing, I've just started looking into it. We haven't pulled the trigger on any projects yet, but we've been analyzing Costa Rica a lot right now, looking at different markets in Costa Rica. I've been going to Costa Rica since 2002. Almost on an annual basis, numerous times. I'm an avid surfer and an ocean goer. So, we spend a lot of time going down there. And as a real estate investor in Canada, you often think when you're traveling, hey, wouldn't it be cool to do something down here? Why would, and I think everybody who's a real estate investor has those thoughts. That's from time to time, whether it be cottage country or, tropical locations or wherever. And so that crossed my mind, and I guess I didn't start getting serious about looking into it until I really sent out a message to my database and said hey, I'm actually, I should go back a little bit further. I have a business coach who called me out on it basically in 2019. I said, I think that I'd like to get a house in Costa Rica and start spending more time down there. And it's 2023 now, and she says, Cam, what have you done about it? And I had done nothing about it. So I basically sent an email out to my database and said, here's the deal. Long story short, I'm looking to do a build in Costa Rica. And would anybody be interested in doing that? Have you ever thought of owning some real estate in Costa Rica? And I got this really warm response and a lot of interest, more than I've gotten in for any type of project that we've advertised for. It's interesting. You put the word Costa Rica in your email,
right?
And people are fascinated by it. And there's something about Costa Rica. People are just drawn to it, and I think investing internationally in general.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think that is? I mean, I think I have some ideas, obviously, with the way that our economy is, and in Ontario specifically, the rules when it comes to tenants and landlords. But maybe we'll hear your thoughts though about why are people, I think more so today, if I had to take a guess and looking back at conversations with investors, I think more and more people are wanting to explore that versus even 5 years ago. Is out of the country, and let's just say Costa Rica as an example. But let's hear your thoughts.
That's a really good question, Sarah. I don't know that I know the answer to it, other than, since the pandemic hit, I think that there was a certain cohort of Canadians who beelined it for Central America or for Mexico or Florida or Texas or wherever wherever they may have been drawn to. For various reasons. And Costa Rica has a history of being a very safe country, and they have no military, and they have this reputation of being an eco-friendly place, and it's safe, and I think that the goods are well known. What's interesting about Costa Rica, and I think that's out there in the consciousness enough. I think people are aware of it enough, and I think that maybe a backup plan is something on some people's minds in a way, right? Maybe I want to have, and they recognize that there's people down in these countries having a good life and having a vacation rental and being able to get away and not just for the winter, let's say, but like maybe as a backup plan for some people. I know a lot of people have moved down to Costa Rica over the last few years, and we've also been looking at temporary residence. We've got our 1-year temporary residence in Mexico. We're about to get our 3-year residency in Mexico, and that's going to lead us to permanent residency. So, I mean, I'm a bit of a believer in having a few different, I guess the options, right?
Not all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, and a lot of one of the investors I'm talking with now, who's very interested in Costa Rica, he exactly that. He wants to have his some property internationally, and he sees there to be some value in that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, and I think this year it was a lot of pivoting and figuring out, okay, what people were doing before, what investors were doing before that seemed to work really well, may not work, exactly the same as it was in the last, little bit with the rates and everything increasing. And I think, looking outside of the country has definitely been one of the pivot points that a lot of people have taken. What else are you seeing, like, other than investing out of country, from a shifting perspective of what seems to be, either working better today? People, for example, like in Hamilton, right? Or in many places, not necessarily just Hamilton, but before, duplex conversions were the be all and end all, and they worked so well and they cash flowed so well. And, over time with the rates and everything like that, that didn't work as well. I don't think today. I think, it might be 3 and 4 units today or commercial. And I think pivoting in the last year has been instrumental for many people to be able to continue to somewhat create, income, cash flow of some sort. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, we still have a lot of clients on our team. We focus on real estate investing. We always have. That's been a big part of our team in real estate in general. And the redevelopment side of things is becoming more popular. We put on a seminar recently for redeveloping 5+ units, 5 to 8, 9, 10 units from either residential or commercial or whatever, right? Just redeveloping, and it was widely attended. Like, people were very, very interested in this, the commercial to residential opportunities and just the residential development opportunities that exist out there. So I think that's one thing, but those are definitely not your beginner strategies. We're still transacting on the triplex, the duplex, the fourplex side of things. Like, that's still part of people's. We can still find numbers to make it work. I mean, the rents have come up so substantially. I think there's a bit of an anticipation that rates are going to come down, and then these investments will do even better. I think that's probably an inevitability. I'd never want to promise that, but I mean, from our point of view, the central banks, the money printing will occur again. It's not a bug. It's a feature in the system. We live in an inflationary environment, and inflation is meaning it's mandatory. Like, so I think that you have to look at your investing almost as like I put a video up recently. It was outrunning the inflation dragon. The idea of like that we're all fighting this thing of inflation, right? Like, if you're saving your money in cash, your dollar values are going down, and your purchase power is going down. So investing is about maintaining your purchase power. And those with access to assets are going to continue to do well. They've done well, and they will continue to do well. And it's either you get involved in an asset class of some kind, or you get poorer. And as dramatic as that sounds, it is the truth. Like, there's really only 2 ways of navigating holding your value that you've made, right? And that is, various assets, real estate, stock. For me, Bitcoin is a big one. Other than creating a business, right? Well, you have to, if you're going to hold your value, you've got to be participating in something that's going to go up over time. And assets will go up over time due to the inflationary nature of our system,
I mean, I think people need to weigh their risk tolerance. And sometimes people are like, I'm so risk adverse, and I just want to leave my money in this checking account or the GIC. Well, that's great. But with a 7 or 6% inflation, your money in a GIC making 1%, 1.5%. I mean, that means exactly what you're saying. You're, depreciating the value of your money, and your money is worth less tomorrow than it is going to be today. So, where can you put it so that you can at least meet the inflation numbers or more? And I think a lot of mutual funds aren't even that great anymore. A lot of, people, unfortunately, they're not all made equal, the financial advisors out there. And many of them make money by providing, insights to putting money into mutual funds and things that unfortunately benefit them. This is why I'm a big proponent of, if you're going to hire a financial advisor, hire one for, pay up front and not in commission, because that can cost a lot of money. But, that may or may not be the best option, right? It could be, like you said, it could be real estate investing. It could be in Canada. It could be out of Canada. It could be Bitcoin. Let's talk about that for a bit. And it could be businesses. It could be different things. It could be, but yeah, absolutely. Putting your money somewhere where you're not even making inflation.
Yeah, I don't think it's really well known why, we're all living in this economic system that when you're inside of it, you can't see it because we're all part of it. And it's like an analogy of a fish in water. The fish doesn't know it's swimming in water. We don't know we're swimming in an environment where our savings are the value of our work, where we place the value of our work into monetary worth, is being stolen every year, and to the tune of 2% or 3%. If they had their perfect system, right? You notice the inflation numbers for central banks it's not 0%. The target inflation rate is 2%. It's 1 to 3%, right?
Yeah.
And inflation is a silent theft, and one of my favorite authors, Jeff Booth, talks about this. You wouldn't notice if somebody was in your house stealing 2% of your stuff. If somebody came in the night and stole 2% of your things in your home, you probably wouldn't notice it. But when it gets into 6%, 7%, we're starting to, that's noticeable,
right?
And the cost of things going up. It's not just there is a supply chain impact that's causing some of the inflation, no doubt, for sure. But more money chasing fewer goods, it creates higher prices. And when the monetary system basically we have a system that is they're creating more monetary units over time, right? That's a fact, right? They can create, if you and I had, $1 million between us, I had 500,000, you had 500,000, and then there was no more money available. It was just you and I had that money, right? Yeah. And if they just went and turned it into $2 million overnight, what happened to our value? Did we get richer or poorer? Right. The answer is we got poorer by 50%. So every time they create more monetary units, it's diluting the value of the dollar.
Yeah, 100%. And they've done that a lot throughout the pandemic.
A lot. Yeah. I mean,
this is why we're in a situation where we're at a very, very, very high inflation number right now in the situation. Right.
It's one of the reasons. Yeah. And I mean, the debt in the world right now, $400 trillion is the total debt level, public and private, to create $100 trillion in economic activity. And, owning real estate is, after enough analysis, is the logical conclusion, is a logical decision. It's a logical thing to do in an environment where inflation is going to be a feature, which is a feature. Whether we like it or not, it's become a monetized thing. Like, it's a thing we need to live in, but it's a thing that people are rushing to save their worth. So, I mean, we can talk about Costa Rica, we can talk about Bitcoin, we can talk
there's so many avenues. Absolutely. But I'm just curious, what are you specifically doing to mitigate for yourself and your portfolio, the inflation risk?
Yeah, I mean, I allocate to Bitcoin. It's a finite resource. It's secure. It's transferable. I mean, you know, the thesis around Bitcoin is a tough one to get through if it's new to your listeners. But once you do the research on it, when you start to, the case for Bitcoin is very, very strong. We're living in a digital world, so I allocate to Bitcoin.
Okay.
I'm working on moving most of my life to Bitcoin and living from that point of view, living from the point of view of holding your monetary worth in Bitcoin and then transferring it to cash, you know, when necessary. So when you do that, it has the effect of the prices are going down. If you hold your value, if you hold your net worth, if you hold monetary value in Bitcoin, the world around you is getting cheaper, and the form of the deflation from technology is flowing to the value that comes from technology deflation is captured in Bitcoin, but it's not captured in dollar value. So when you live in a dollar system, which we all do, everything's getting more expensive. But in Bitcoin, it's the opposite. So transferring the value of your dollar to Bitcoin and then living in a Bitcoin world, the Bitcoin standard, some people call it, is a step out of the current system, not in an avoidance way, but just in a way of like holding your value and maintaining that value over time. And so that's you know, there's a lot of work that needs to happen before you can understand that, oh, this is a good place to be, right? Like a lot of people have like a very, you know, derogatory view on Bitcoin. It's a speculative asset. It's a cryptocurrency. It's just like Ethereum, but it's not. It's very, very different than any other the cryptocurrencies out there. It stands alone. It's been the security SEC has given it a commodity status. Everything else is a security. So there's no one in charge of Bitcoin. It's decentralized. It's safe. It's secure. It's a monetary asset that can be transferred all over the world at any time through it's a digital energy, and all of these things plus more, and the security of it allow it to be something that you can hold your value in, transfer it anywhere in the world, and it's not manipulated by any one person, right? There's nobody. It's not centralized, so you can't create. They're not going to create more of it. There's 21 million. That's all there's ever going to be. And that is, you know, you can create more real estate, you can find more gold, the stocks can be manipulated, like they can do buyback, like there's a whole bunch of, like, everything has some sort of centralized control to it, but Bitcoin stands alone as a decentralized asset that has no other counterparty risk. Everything else in the world has a counterparty risk, you know, mortgages on real estate, you know, companies, and you know, anything that's tied to the debt system. Right. So I think I would just implore, you know, like, look into the benefits of Bitcoin and how it can create a very positive place for the future of the world. And I think that it's, you know, we all complain about the system, right? We all complain about this craziness. They're stealing our money and theft, inflation. But what are we doing about it? And if you take a moment, do the research on it, learn from people like Jeff Booth, Michael Saylor, some of these pioneers who are really building things on top of Bitcoin. It's a very exciting, beautiful future that's available outside of the central bank system, outside of the centralized control, power corrupting, you know, like it takes a lot to get through most of this conversation, but I think Bitcoin is very, very worthwhile endeavor to look into. If you haven't read into it, definitely have a good read. I would start with The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth.
Okay.
Or maybe The Bitcoin Standard by Bitcoin Standard is a good one to start with.
Yeah, no, that was actually going to be my next question is, you know, because I don't know much about it, you know, and we hear parts of it, bits and pieces, and, you know, and it's just like, just like real estate, right? It takes a while to really learn it and understand it and, you know, figure out the strategy. I'm assuming Bitcoin is similar in the sense that you've really got to grasp, you know, the strategy and everything around it.
You know, here's the thing, Sarah, like, I used to view Bitcoin as an investment, but it is, but it's so much more than that. It's actually a protocol, which is you can build a new world on top of. I know that sounds really like, airy fairy or whatever, but similar to how the internet was built, like TCP, when that was in existence, this network that was created, people thought, okay, this is whatever, no big deal. They couldn't see what was going to be available in 1985 and 1990 when it first came out. And then people started building on top of it. And then HTTP came out, and then we had websites, and these things started to become more prevalent. And then it grew and grew. And then Amazon and companies started getting involved, and websites and information. And we had all of this access to, and it just turned into this. And it's everything to us right now. And it's making things cheaper. Like, we're able to talk. I don't have to travel to see you. We can just talk over a Zoom. And that's technology. Bitcoin is technology, and it's the most powerful technology that the human race has ever invented, and it's something that is being built on now, and it's the same level in terms of impact, and maybe and probably greater in time than the internet was. But it contains monetary value. It's a network. It's digital. So we're in the early days, very, very early days of adoption of Bitcoin. And it's not so much that it's an investment, although it is, and there is monetary worth to the protocol. It's that there is a decentralized, secure protocol that people can build on top of, and that's what's happening now. And people are building applications and layer 2s and layer 3s on top of Bitcoin, and that's an exciting world because there's no manipulation there. See, what we all experience in our lives is manipulation of money. That's why we go to real estate to hold our wealth. Right. But what if you didn't have to go to anything to hold your wealth? You could just hold your wealth. You could hold your dollar. What if a dollar just maintained its value? And, and there's a lot of hope there, and we don't see it because we're all in this system. We don't see the opportunity and what the world could look like. But the books I've suggested, like Jeff Booth's The Price of Tomorrow, would be the most impactful, and as far as I'm concerned. It's had the greatest impact on my life, and I've read it 3 times now. I think it's something you could read it multiple times, but every time it's a deeper layer. And it had an effect of scaring me a little bit on the real estate side, because if this house of cards does come down someday, right, there will be a potential, like a deflationary moment where everything will fall to its utility cost or utility value, or the prices will fall to its cost of production. So, real estate values in Canada are super inflated. Right. And that's a system thing. The value is not different of a house in Florida versus a house in Canada. But yet we have these 2 different valuations going on, right? We have like one houses that look like 300,000 in Florida, but they're like a million 3 in Canada, right? Like, and so that, that's manipulation of money. And that comes from our monetization of property. I hope I'm not rushing.
No, this is all really interesting. I don't want to interrupt you because I'm like, we're getting so much information and just a whole different way to look at things. And I think it is interesting. And it also makes me realize that I've got to do some research on this, this other option as well, because I think it's important to, I'm heavy into real estate. Which I've like, it has worked so well, and I'm sure for the next little bit it'll continue to do well in different strategies. But there's always something to be said. Like, we're still trading in dollars at the end of the day.
And we will. And I'm not, like US dollars. It can be the US. Like it's just, we're so early. Bitcoin is so early. It's in 10 years and 15 years and 20, you just watch what happens around the world over time, and it's only been 13 years that it's been in existence. So
that's the book to start with. And, let's just talk about like some of the downsides. Because again, from somebody that really knows nothing about it at this point in time, you do hear that the value is going up and then the value is going down, and it seems like it still fluctuates a little bit. Maybe I just don't understand it, but what are some of the downsides?
Well, when you look at the price of Bitcoin, what we're measuring the price of Bitcoin against is the dollar, right? So when you take when you take one one Bitcoin, and then currently it's worth, I don't know, like whatever the number is right now, like approximately $30,000. When it goes up in value, it's not going, a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. And so the fluctuation is volatility. There is a lot of volatility in the market. It's been actually pretty stable this year. Over the COVID years, like everything was volatile, right? We had this massive real estate volatility. You had incredible price appreciation that was just fueled by cheap money, and the values are have come off, and they've come up. And so Bitcoin is very liquid, and so because of that liquidity, the price can fluctuate. So I think that if you're looking at it from a short-term point of view, like if you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to, get in and out, or I'm going to try to time the market, I just wouldn't. There's a downside there. I mean, that you're looking at it purely from a speculative point of view. I personally would encourage you to look at it from a store of value at minimum for long term, and at best, thinking about it from holding your actual like viewing the world through a Bitcoin system. Now, I imagine your listeners are going to be like, I don't even know what you're talking about when you say that. And so I think that if you back up and just consider that the dollar is you're pricing Bitcoin in a dollar, but Bitcoin has its own inherent value in terms of like, so I would not speculate on it. It's just use it. Over time, there are applications that are showing up that we can start spending it. You can spend money you can spend Bitcoin. And as the network grows and it becomes more accepted globally, there's so much money out there in the world, right? In terms of sitting in places that haven't discovered Bitcoin yet. And as that adoption occurs, it's instant. Bitcoin can contain it can handle a lot of monetary influx. Like some money can keep coming into it. And so it's just the beginning. The price predictions on Bitcoin are, it can contain millions. You could be buying houses with very little of it someday. But again, I don't really look at it from an investment point of view. I look at it from there's hope there. There's actually a fundamental shift in what's available to us as human beings to recognize the value that comes from technology and let that value flow to us and so prices will go down over time. Like, the price of Bitcoin goes up in dollar value, but if you hold your monetary worth in Bitcoin, prices around you are decreasing. And that's a paradigm shift. To get your head around that it requires research and time, and that paradigm shift a lot is where it's not escaping a system, it's a completely new system, and it's a system that doesn't need a central bank to manipulate the money. And again, we're early.
Yeah. Why do you think it hasn't been adapted by so many people yet? I mean, we hear about it, but I think the general
there's a misconception about its utility and what it's really for. People think about it as an investment only, and it's much more than that. It's like it's truth inside of like it can hold an entirely new system. It can be the foundation, the base layer of a new system, and that's a big idea. Most people don't think about it from that point of view, right? Like we're busy living our lives. We're doing our work every day. We're trying to go on a vacation. We're trying to pay our bills. We're doing what we have to do, right? Most people aren't spending the time to investigate what the actual true opportunity is inside of this technology. And a lot of people have done the work, like the guys I've mentioned, and the people I've mentioned have written, there's a lot of books written about it. There's communities about it.
Now, do you think the government is doing it almost on purpose to not spread the word out and not put it out on?
The government, they won't be. They're focused on consolidation and control. I mean, like that's what their role is. They're they're all the same. The parties are all the same. They're all going to they all want to get elected. They all want to they have to pander to the masses. And for them to stick their necks out on something like Bitcoin is a risky idea, because it's not yet widely. The adoption of Bitcoin comes from people recognizing value one at a time, one person at a time, one organization at a time, one company at a time. And so it's not going to be like a top-down transformation. It'll be a network effect transformation, similar to how the internet took hold, how the internet value occurred. It's similar to how cell phones became value, right? When people move to value, where they see value, right? Where the highest value is. People, you own an iPhone because of the value it provides you. It's got all these free applications. It's got all the technology that you could possibly want. It's better, better than every other competitor out there, right? Arguably, right?
Right.
And so people's energy and money and time go to the place of highest value, and Bitcoin's value is being understood by more and more people. And as that occurs, some people, and the use cases become, once the Bitcoin gets utilized in the economy more. Right now, it's just a layer. It's just a very boring, secure layer. And what's being built on top of that are use cases where people can start utilizing it for actual purposes, like spending it in stores and sending, and applications being built on top of it, social networks being built on top of the Bitcoin layer that don't require any centralization. I would encourage you to look at Nostr, which is a social network built on the Bitcoin layer that is completely decentralized. There's no advertising. It's a platform on top. So it's a layer 2 protocol. So when the use cases become interesting, that's when people will start to and then I can just get on this monetary network and you get this value from it. So
maybe one day you can buy a house with Bitcoin.
100%.
Canada. I think I've heard somewhere that it was done, but not in this country. But you probably know more than this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe you'd have to transfer it into a checking account and change it over to dollars. I don't think we're there yet where you can just. It'd be nice because it could be settled in an instantly with no permission, no trust from anybody. It's completely trustless. So you would eliminate the need for any banking oversight at all. It is doable, but it's still early, like I said. But
maybe you could be the first one. You sell you buy one of your real estate deals with some Bitcoin.
Well, there's people who hold their pay their employees in Bitcoin, and then you can transfer it to your cash afterwards, and it's just about holding it. And it's a beautiful place. There's a lot of hope there. There's a lot of hope in the Bitcoin realm, and you'll love it, Sarah, if you dig into it a bit. I suspect that given your investment acumen and your value seeking acumen, you'll probably find a lot of interest in it if you're willing to do the work. I think it just requires a lot of reading and understanding in the beginning.
Same with real estate, right? Lots of reading, lots of listening to podcasts, books, right? Education, and then taking action. So I'll look at the books that you recommended and go from there. I mean, I think I just don't know enough about it, but it's like you're making it sound very interesting.
It is.
And you don't want to look back 10 years from now and be like, it was early stages and it might be still early. I don't know,
Yeah.
But
yeah, for real. Yeah. I mean, all I would say to your listeners and to you, just get off zero and understand, get off zero. So when the monetary system debases, as it will, it's a mathematical fact, you're going to want something that's going to have its own utility value and that you can take anywhere in the world at any time and transfer. And it's your passphrases. Nobody can confiscate it. It's like,
yeah,
it is truly currency for hope.
So what about like gold and silver? Do you think that's the currency of the past? And Bitcoin is where we're at today?
For sure. Yeah. Bitcoin is a digital asset. We've never had such a thing. We've never had a fully decentralized something that's called a commodity by the, Gary Gensler of the SEC, right? Like the guy who makes the decisions for the US government about what is a security and what is a commodity. And Bitcoin's a commodity in his eyes. So this is the first time the human race has ever been able to have digital gold essentially and be able to transfer it anywhere in the world. And it's safe and it's secure and it's, gold and silver is, it's confiscatable. It's mineable. You can create more of it, and it is a store of value, no question.
Okay. All right. Awesome. I mean, I could keep asking you lots of questions, but we're at the end of our podcast. So
yeah, that's good.
I'm going to ask you 5 quick questions, lightning round speed. You're going to give me, first answer that comes to mind. You ready?
Okay.
All right. Question number 1, what's your favorite real estate investing book?
I'm going to have to say Don Campbell's Real Estate Investing in Canada, because that was the one that really got me back in 2009. So I'll say that one. Shout out to Don Campbell. Yes,
absolutely. Number 2, not necessarily real estate related, but do you have a favorite podcast?
Anything with Jeff Booth in it.
Okay. All right. Number 3, what do you do for fun?
Jiu-jitsu, surf.
Okay. All right. My husband would love that answer because he's big into jiu-jitsu as well.
Oh yeah. Cool.
Yeah. He just got, nice. I don't know what belts, but he's been doing it for a few years.
Awesome.
Number 4, if you lost everything, all your assets, your money tomorrow, how would you start again?
Gratitude.
All right, cool. It's first answer of that sort. And number 5, if somebody has $50,000, they want to get started in something, real estate. I mean, it could be Bitcoin in this case. How would you recommend they get started?
50,000 to get investing into something?
Yeah, to start the change of their lives.
Right. 50,000.
It used to be a lot. And I don't want to change it on purpose, because when I started this podcast in 2017, it was a lot more.
Yeah. 50,000 is a tough number these days. I think you need like a lot more. I mean, if you're just getting started, I would take $50,000, probably buy a rental with 3 units in it, something like that, move into one, house hack it. I think that would be, the smartest use of your resources. I give that advice to people all the time. I wouldn't say put your life savings into Bitcoin. That would be irresponsible. I think it would be irresponsible for me to suggest that. I think that, if you've done the research and you feel like it's something that you feel good about, like, don't take my word for it. That's a horrible investment advice, is to do what I say. Like, do your research. So I would house hack.
Okay. All right. Great answer. Cam, where can my listeners reach out and find out more?
McCarrollgroup.com is our website for real estate. And I'm on Twitter, cam.mccarroll.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure having you on. And I've learned a lot today, a lot about Bitcoin, and I knew nothing about it. And I still don't know anything about it, but just even today, it's a little step into the direction of, I'm probably going to now start at least doing a little bit of research to figure out if it's something to add to the portfolio.
That's awesome, Sarah. That's how it starts.
It does. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks a lot for having me. Take care.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larby. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?